Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, November 4th. Welcome to November, everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend, had a great Halloween. We had a great weekend of sports. I know I got up to go to Syracuse to watch the Orange take down the Hokies in an overtime comeback victory. A great game to go to. Wonderful time up in Syracuse, New York. We're going to talk about all the college football action. We'll talk about the winners and the losers from a crazy Saturday that once again saw chaos reign. We will talk about our top 25, doing it on Monday today instead of our usual rankings Tuesday. And with the deadline approaching, the NFL deadline officially tomorrow, less than 24 hours from now, we go over a list of players that I think might be on a different uniform when we go live tomorrow, as well as coaching changes and a preview of Monday Night Football. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you use either of those two things, again, that message should pop up. If you have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, November 4th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today going over the winners and losers from yet another chaotic college football Saturday. Week 10 in the books, and the playoff committee comes out with it tomorrow. So we'll talk about a little bit of our losers. Starting out at number 5, the AP. Again, the playoff committee comes out with their rankings tomorrow, and as much as just on the surface level, the AP is a loser because now they're losing their, importance as the playoff committee's rankings now take over in importance over the AP ranking. We now also get to look at the AP with a much more critical eye. The thing that the playoff committee is supposed to do is ignore everything that the AP committee has done. And I know there are a million different critiques over the AP committee. It is hard to take an average of 30 writers that come together to make the AP list and get a perfect list. Everyone has their different opinions. You think a team should be number 3. I think they should be number 7. They're going to end up at 5, and that's going to mess up everything else, right? That's just how it goes. The AP is the number 5 loser this week, but not only because they're losing relevance, but also just because I think this is the toughest week so far to rank teams. My biggest takeaway from Saturday's games, and I'm not sure if everybody else feels the same way, but my biggest takeaway from Saturday's games were the fact that 25 teams in the country do not deserve to be ranked. I think I can go through, and we'll talk about it in our next segment when we actually go through the top 25 rankings that I've put together for this week. I think we can go through this, and I think I can only find about 20 teams, 19-ish teams that deserve to be ranked. The rest you just kind of throw together to complete the list. And that's where we're sitting at right now. So not only does the AP lose because they're going to lose their relevance, their national importance today in just a couple of hours, but also there was no way for them to get this right, because especially at the bottom, I don't think all those teams deserve to be in a ranked spot. Our number 5 winner, going to the other side of things, is once again Indiana. They found their way onto our winners now 3 weeks in a row. Indiana continues to shine. They get a massive win over Michigan State, 47-10, after Michigan State gives them a deficit for the first time all season. Michigan State goes up 10-0 in this game. Previously, before this game started, they had not for a single second all season come and felt a loss for a single second. That showed this team's ability to fight back. And I know it was against Michigan State. It wasn't the most quality of opponents. It wasn't the opponent you look at and you say, now they're world beaters. But Indiana coming back and scoring 47 straight points after facing, you might say, adversity for the first time this season shows a lot in this team. And there's other teams that have been rising to the top of polls, that have been up higher than Indiana, in my opinion, in the AP's opinion, and most people's opinion, that just collapsed under pressure last week especially, and we'll get to that as we move on. Indiana is our number 5 winner. Our number 4 loser, you just have to throw them in there. It's Florida State, and it is an incredible fall from grace for this team. Florida State coming after an undefeated season last year, feeling disrespected by the playoff committee, an undefeated ACC championship, not making it. They go and they reload, and now they are arguably the worst FBS team. At the very least, they are not in the top 100, and that might be the biggest season-to-season disaster that I have ever seen. How the Florida State head coach keeps his job after this season, I have no idea. Surprised he hasn't been fired yet. This is a disaster class of a season. It's crazy to me how bad Florida State has fallen, and now 10 weeks into this, I think we can finally say this might be one of the quickest collapses. And I know rosters have entire turnovers in college football, but this might be one of the most insane collapses that has ever happened in college football. They were ranked 10 heading into the season, and now they're nothing but an afterthought. They made huge power plays this offseason, especially in the ACC, trying to get out of there, saying, hey, let the guys that are worse than us come in, like in SMU, for instance, that now is fighting for a division title, an ACC title in their first year. This is just a comedy of errors for Florida State. And as their whole season has gone on, they've just been a bigger and bigger laughingstock. They flew too close to the sun, and they came crashing down. Florida State is our number 4 loser. Our number 4 winner is one-loss teams. This is another way to say chaos, I assume. I guess, right? When I'm talking about the fact that not 25 teams deserve to be ranked, that can be taken both ways. Not only does it show the lack of domination from the top teams in college football, but it gives these teams like an LSU, it gives these teams like a Texas A&M, like a Clemson, these teams that now have struggled, like an Iowa State, a team that slipped up this one time, like a Colorado that slipped up early in the season. These teams, like a Notre Dame, I can keep going, Texas, Georgia, these teams that have one loss, these teams that have slipped up one time, but other than that, been really, really good all season long. It gives them the shot that they need to come back out of this season and prove that they are a team that deserves respect. It gives them the shot that they need to come out and fix the mistake that they made a lot of times in the past in college football. And that's something that I really like about this 12-team playoff. At least the idea is that it gives teams the chance. Their season isn't over once they lose. Imagine if Georgia's season was over once they lost to Alabama. Why would they try against Texas? That game, that season wouldn't have meant so much. And that's what I love about this 12-team playoff, this expanded field. And we can talk about whether or not 12 is the perfect number. I think an expanded field is good. I think 12 might be the perfect number, honestly. I think 12 is a really good number. We'll see how it goes this season. But in a season as chaotic as it is, a one-loss team now is the 4th winner of this week. Our number 3 loser, we're gonna get a little bit out of the hypotheticals, these crazy little scenarios, these big groups, and just point the finger directly at Clemson. Clemson now has played, in my opinion, 2 real opponents. In 10 weeks, Clemson has played 2 real opponents. The ACC is not a division, not a conference that I'm looking at and saying, oh my God, this is the scariest conference. But the ACC is a conference that has some solid teams. They did not play a single one until this week when they ran into the Louisville Cardinals. and they looked horrendous, especially defensively. Especially defensively. The offense did not show up until the end, and even then, it was way too little, way too late. This was a team that had high expectations from me. I thought Georgia, week 1, was just a fluke. Again, taking a look at those one-loss teams that we just categorized as winners. But no, in just their second real game of the season, their second real test of the season, they now fall. And this destroys not just Clemson, but a lot of the ACC's ability to claim that they have a good opponent, a good loss, a competitive loss against a good team. And this tanks the ACC. We'll talk about it in the next segment, later on in this segment, just a little bit. But that is a brutal loss for Clemson. They should be really looked at as real frauds now, and it really goes to the fact that not 25 teams deserve to be ranked this year. Clemson, one of those teams that I don't really think deserves to be ranked, but is going to find its way onto the ranking because there's just not 25 teams better than them, honestly. It's a shame, though. Our number 3 winner, SMU. We kind of brought it up a little bit. Florida State kind of brought him in to say, see, we can share into the ACC. These guys aren't as good as us, but we'll be generous and let them in. We're not like these guys. And then SMU, undefeated in ACC play. They control their own destiny to the playoffs. If they win out, they make the college football playoffs. They are on track to make it to the ACC championship game to take on Miami after absolutely brutalizing Pitt in this last game. Pitt, a team that had not lost point blank period all season long, comes into this matchup, the biggest matchup of both of these two seasons. The winner of this matchup controls their destiny to the college football playoff. And SMU demolishes them. It was not close. A 30-point victory for this team is exactly what the doctor ordered, and hopefully SMU can get some of the respect that it deserves. They are our number 3 winner of the week. Getting back to the losing side of things. Our number 2 loser, again, a little bit of a concept here, is the ACC and the Big 12. We've talked a lot about how the power play of these conferences, the pushing and the pulling, especially in between the Power 4 conferences with the SEC and the Big 10, and of course the ACC and the Big 12, right? You have these teams that are way, way up here, these conferences that are way up here, and these conferences that are struggling to hold on to power, and then you have the Group of 5. Even lower down on the list. This is exactly what we are seeing, and it kind of sucks a little bit. I've sat here in the offseason of college football and championed the rights for these smaller conferences and championed the rights against the Big 10 and the SEC. But you kind of see where all the power comes from when you take a look at these conferences. In a 12-team playoff, as things stand, there is simply not room for 2 ACC teams and 2 Big 12 teams. The SEC and the Big 10 have set out to do exactly what they meant to do, which is hold the ACC and the Big 12 to just one bid. And unless something drastic happens down the stretch, I know the SEC is going to be a battle down the stretch now that A&M has lost this week. No one has a clear path to the top. It's just muddled. It's crazy what's going to happen at the top of the Big 10 now that Ohio State has beaten down Penn State. What's going to happen there? Indiana's still in the mix. There is simply not room for the runner-up in either of those 2 conferences with the way that the other 2 conferences is playing, and they played themselves right into the hands of the SEC and the Big 10, and honestly, it's not good for the future of the sport. This year, the ACC or the Big 12 needed to prove that they could contend with these big guys, that they have more than just one team that is worthy of being in these playoffs, and they have not done that. This week was really the nail in the coffin for that. I was still holding out hope that maybe Clemson and Miami could get in, that maybe, you could get a BYU and an Iowa State in. But instead, they falter down the stretch, and they're not really in consideration for that anymore. And now the future of college football is a little bit more uncertain than it was just 72 hours ago. But we'll see. The ACC and the Big 12 are the second biggest losers. The second biggest winner of the week is Ryan Day. So much has been said about Ryan Day this season. So much has been said about what he means for this program, how much on the hot seat he is, especially after that loss to Oregon, the way that they came out flat at the end, the bad clock management. Not all on him, but still, his failure to compete when he goes up against really good teams. 2-8 before this week against top 5 opponents, AP top 5 opponents. He goes in to Happy Valley, one of the hardest places to play, on whiteout day, college game day there. Falls to a 10-0 lead early in the first quarter and comes all the way back and does not allow the Penn State offense, crucially, to get into the end zone a single time. That Ohio State team showed me something this week. Ryan Day showed me something this week. This Ohio State team can, maybe not consistently, which is the thing I'm scared of, but at least any given week, they can show that they belong with the biggest of the boys. That was a huge win for Ryan Day, for his job security, really, and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Which leads directly into our number one loser, which is James Franklin. And my God, he has put Penn State in a bind. And I'm not just going to say him. It's not just his fault, but it is a tough place for Penn State to be. They have not beaten Ohio State since 2016 or 2013. It's been a long time. 1-10 now, all time, against Ohio State is James Franklin. And Ohio State's a very good team. Normally, that's not something too surprising. You can go from, in the last 11 years of every Big Ten opponent, you can say, hey, they probably are 0-11 against Ohio State. Most teams would be, at least. Usually, Michigan's the only team in the Big Ten that can even compete with Ohio State. Not every year, but at least for a very long time. So it's not that weird that they're 1-10 in their last 11 meetings. The issue is that Penn State dominates everyone else, and they cannot get past Ohio State. And again, Ohio State is really good. And James Franklin, I think undoubtedly, is a very good coach in this league, in the NCAA, in the Big Ten. Penn State can't really fire him. They're only going to get worse if they fire him. But he cannot get over that Ohio State hump. And I don't know what it's going to take for him to get over that Ohio State hump. But whatever it is, they need to figure it out soon because their leash is running dangerously thin on James Franklin. And he is the biggest loser of this week, which takes us to our number one winner. I talk all segment about how not 25 teams deserve to be ranked, about how this has been such a muddled year filled with chaos and just insanity. Cats and dogs falling from the sky, but only one team has proven consistency. Week over week over week improvement. They have continually, outside of a couple of stumbles in the early season, like you might expect with a team that's growing pains, proven that they belong at the top, and that is Oregon. Oregon has separated themselves from the rest of the country, I think, pretty easily. The number one team. I don't think another team is even close to them. We talk about a team like Texas stumbling, those one-win teams that got a win this week in my book, the number 4 winners. Like a Georgia that was previously ranked number 1. Like an Alabama that was previously ranked number 1. These teams that were ranked number 1 and then faltered. Oregon has not done that. They have only solidified their grasp on it. One of the most impressive wins of the entire season over Ohio State, a really good Ohio State team. This is what you needed. This is the juggernaut of the college football season. That is the one that everyone is looking up to, and it is Oregon. They go out there and they prove why they were one of 3 teams at the beginning of the season that I thought had the ability to win it all. They have come into their own, and they have done it magnificently. Oregon is the number 1 winner of the week. But as always, our super winner of this week, as it seems to be every single season, is chaos. Chaos reigns supreme, especially in a top 25 that was super hard to fill out this week. Make sure you stick around, because when we come back after this short break, we go over that top 25. I promise you there are 25 teams on here. I'll tell you where I think they start to deserve to be ranked. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.